As you can see, I've escaped my office and I'm in the wonderful city of Ostend. I really enjoy visiting here. There are lots of wonderful cafes and restaurants. It's by the sea, of course. There's a wonderful promenade that stretches for miles. It's great. And I'm always given a very warm welcome by the Royal Ostend Chess Club. I've been visiting the club for years and years, playing in tournaments here. And they are organising the COCOON tournament. So this is an open tournament. In fact, there are 3 tournaments going on, open tournaments. And as you can see, I'm sitting in the tournament hall. You can probably just see behind me. There we go, some chess sets there. It's really well organised. I'm here giving a simul and a little bit of tuition to some juniors. But, you know, I'm dropping into the tournament as well to check out the games. And what I'd like to do is show you 3 really sparkling short games played in the open tournament here. So, first of all, I'd like to show you the game between Tom Picot and Jeroen van den Berg. And Tom is an international master from Belgium and a very well-known chess coach in the area. And he plays an incredibly aggressive line against the King's Indian, the 4 pawns attack. And I think this is good strategy in an open tournament where, well, there are even a couple of double round days, so there's a lot of pressure. And you have to sort of reserve your energy. So it's worth playing these really sharp lines against perhaps weaker players than yourself to try and go for a quick knockout. And that's what happened here. So in this 4 pawns attack, this is a very old variation actually. And you can see it's a kind of Benoni position. But there's immediate pressure on this pawn. So white is forced to lunge forward. Of course, one of these pawns is dropping. But in playing e6, of course, that opens the king a little bit now that the f7 pawn is gone. And the pawn on e6 blocks the bishop. And white has this powerful passed pawn on d6, which can be a real thorn in the side. But it's really about opening lines. In this position, I mean, many games have been played, but black has lots of options, which is why I think it's a very interesting opening variation to play for white. Because lots of options, that means plenty of opportunities for black to go wrong. And very often that happens, as in this game. So knight e5 played after a 25-minute think. Well, that shows you the variation has been successful in a sense, because, you know, black is obviously a bit confused or couldn't remember analysis. It's a tricky position. Knight e5 I think is an understandable move, because this knight is sort of dangling on g4. But very quickly, you know, after these seemingly natural moves, in fact, black ends up in a very bad position. So knight e4 is a nice move. Principally looking at that weak f6 square, bishop g5, and already this is very, very nice for white. Knight e5, so an exchange of rooks, and knight f6 check, king goes in the corner, and now a very nice move from Tom. Knight e8, what an attractive move to play. So the threat is simply to take the bishop, give a check on f6, and take the knight. And it's very hard to defend against that. You can see that black's pieces are just locked out of play, whereas white's pieces, even the rook on a1, is ready to move into the action actually. So knight d7 covers f6 and f8, but queen f7 threatens queen takes bishop mate, so therefore queen b2, covers the bishop, attacks the rook, but the rook slides into action. Now, at this moment, well, black is lost. Black played h6 here. But let's have a look at what happens if, for example, black tries to bring this bishop into play. Well, white has a wonderful winning move. Maybe I should just give you a moment to try and think of the move. I mean, there's more than one way to win this position. But this is a very attractive finish. So it basically just blocks out the queen. So queen takes bishop, mate is threatened. And if, let's say, bishop takes, check. And if knight takes, then queen g7 mate. I mean, there are other variations, but I think it's pretty clear. In any case, black did not play b6, but instead went for h6. But now, queen takes pawn, and another mate appears on the board. Bishop d3, threatening queen h7 mate, and there is really no good defense after that. Black gave a check, king h1, and here black resigned. Very nice game. I like it. Absolutely route one. Dangerous variation. Really got to know that if you play black. Okay, next game. You find this one. Ah, this appealed to me because it was a king's gambit. Well, how could I resist looking at this game? So we have Adrian Drelink, a Belgian player. I think he's around about 20 years old, against David Zwolenski from the Czech Republic. And yeah, the good old king's gambit. Great to see. Again, a great opening variation. The opening for open tournaments where, you know, the games come thick and fast. You're under a lot of pressure. Can black find or remember his chosen system against this? Well, in fact, Zwolenski plays knight f6, which is certainly recognized as one of the better systems against the king's gambit. If you look at this with a computer, you'll find that the computer rather approves of knight f6. However, it does lead straight away to actually rather an unorthodox position, and that's basically as white. That's what you want with the king's gambit. You know, black has to somehow negotiate this position with a knight on h5. Somebody said knights on the rim are grim. Although at the moment it does have a good function because it protects the pawn, which prevents that bishop coming into play, and that's often somehow the key debate in the king's gambit. Does the bishop on c1 get into play? So bishop e7 played here. Perhaps not the best move. I mean, d6 is the theoretical move. Actually, I want to show you a nice trap here. You've probably seen this before, but queen e2 is a very tricky move. Nepo likes to play like this. And if bishop e7, then you can take on d6. Black recaptures. Seems to be fine for black, but no. Queen b5 check. Forks, king and knight. Nice double attack. Anyway, I'll leave you to investigate that. So bishop e7 played. After bishop e2, actually black is already under some pressure. You know, this is a little bit uncomfortable. g6, white castles, d6, and simple development. Knight c3, good move. And it's not so easy for black to develop successfully now. So here's how the game went. Knight c6 takes on d6. Black recaptured, and d5. I mean, this would be the move if black recaptured with the bishop as well. And this is a difficult position. I mean, probably the safest is to put the knight back on b8. But then after this, Okay, that opens up the bishop's diagonal, and bishop f4. Well, I mean, this is kind of a dream position from the king's gambit. One, you're not a pawn down. That's a good start. The f-file is open. The rook is in play. These knights look pretty good. You know, maybe the bishop will come to h6. I think white can be very satisfied with that position. Anyway, that didn't happen. Queen b6 check. Now things got even worse, actually. Exchange on e5. Bishop takes knight. Yes. And the queen came into play, threatening the pawn on e5. Queen f6, that defends the pawn. Rook e1, oh, more pressure. So this is already looking very uncomfortable for black. And where exactly is that king going? Yes, it's looking a bit jaundiced in the middle of the board. Well, I mean, the best for black is to give back a pawn, or give up a pawn, and escape to an endgame. But white is better there. But instead, black careered on with bishop f5. And now, classic king's gambit. So as I mentioned before, key question is, can that bishop get into play? Well, it can here with this nice sacrifice. Well, it's not much of a sacrifice, but anyway, it's crashing through, which is what we want to see. So pawn takes was played, and now d6. So exploiting the pin. And of course, if queen takes pawn, then queen takes bishop, and yeah, black's king is in huge trouble there. Hasn't got a safe place to go to. So bishop e6 played. Pawn takes bishop. Black still can't castle. f3. Bit late for this one. Queen takes pawn, and now a really attractive finish. Knight d5. Queen here, and now what's the killer move? Rook takes bishop, of course. Can't take with a pawn, and if queen takes, then knight c7 wins the queen, and that's that. Great stuff. So it was all over in 21 moves. Great to see the king's gambit successfully played. And finally, let me show you this game. So this was played, so this is Martin Roeder playing white against Thibaut Dems playing black. So Martin, I had a nice chat with Martin at the bar after the game. Martin is from Groningen in the Netherlands, in the north of Netherlands, and he owns a chess cafe, which is called the Proeflokaal Hooghout. There we go. So if you're in Groningen and you fancy a game of chess and a good beer or coffee, then do check out the Proeflokaal, which is apparently in the centre of town. So Martin was very proud of this game. He doesn't get much time off, he says, but he enjoys his chess when he gets a moment to play. Caro-Kann. Now, here's where it starts to get a bit tricky. So instead of just recapturing, Martin played bishop c4. Okay, so black is wanting to play super solidly, but finds himself in a gambit variation. So we've basically transposed, or white is trying to transpose, into a Black-Mar-Diemer gambit. And that can be very tricky. Now, I think probably one of the best moves here is bishop f5, or after exchanging, to play bishop f5 and then e6 to bring the bishop outside the pawn chain. And that can help protect the king side as well. But black played e6, and after this, I think white already has quite decent compensation. And queen e1 is the classic move, starting to send the queen over to the king side, to these dangerous squares, and white's pieces are very much in play here. It's extremely dangerous for black already. And after this, maybe that's just a little bit too casual. Exchange on c5. King just dropped into the corner. Bishop d7. Bishop g5. That's a nice pin. So the bishop came back and rook d1. Well, I mean, for one pawn, this is an absolute dream position with every single one of white's pieces in play. And the knight ready to slam onto the outpost. Knight e5. Already, I think black is probably lost. And the game finished very sweetly. Queen c7. Stepping out of the pin seems innocuous, but watch what happens. It's all over in a couple of moves. Or maybe you can find it. What's the little tactic here that white has? Exchange on f6. And rook takes, and black resigned. Because if pawn takes rook, queen g3, and yep, there's a discovered attack. Queen takes, queen on c7. Well done to Martin Roeder there. Very nice finish, very nice stuff. Of course, the Black-Mar-D-Mar Gambit is a feared weapon. Black doesn't have to go in for all that. You know, one can just play e3 if you want to calm things down. As I mentioned, bishop f5 as well. But anyway, again, it's a typical variation that is so dangerous in these kind of open tournaments. Hope you enjoyed that, and yeah, if you ever fancy a visit to Ostend and want to check out the chess club there, I can warmly recommend it. And well, hopefully there'll be another tournament in September in Ostend next year.